So when I'm saying that we want to raise up readers in our schools, I'm talking about more than just knowing the mechanics. Can they read it distinctly, give the sense, and cause others to understand the reading?
Welcome back to the Doc School Leader Podcast, where we're dedicated to the renewal and growth of school leaders. I'm your host, Kyler Martin. Transformative schools need effective leaders, and effectiveness requires patient training. Here we go. A segment of episodes addressing academic fundamentals wouldn't be complete without talking about reading. When we think about reading, many of us might think about the question of how to help students with dyslexia or autism. That's important. But how well is your school doing overall at shaping your students into adults who love reading, who can do it well, and who can enter deeply into their reading? Drawing inspiration from Nehemiah, where the law was rediscovered through distinct reading that gave the sense and caused the people to understand, Lyndon Hartman calls us to reevaluate our commitment to developing the essential craft of reading. Lyndon speaks from a background of teaching reading and literature in several different grades, working with reading curriculum, and most importantly, speaks from a deep love of reading. He outlines 6 areas for us to evaluate: our teachers, our curriculum, our books, our judgment when dealing with struggling readers, our libraries, and our examples. He opens by reading.
It was darker than dark that cold fall night. The stars hid behind windswept clouds, and the moon was a here again, gone again eye. Bet you're afraid, said my big brother Willie to me and our city cousins Julius and Dan. Bet you're afraid to spend the night in the barn. Not me, said Dan. Not me, said Julius. Me neither, I said. So we gathered up sleeping bags, snacks, and coats and headed for the back door. Our dog Amos was waiting there, his tail patting a question. No, Willie told him, grabbing the flashlight. You can't go. You'll eat our food and drool on our sleeping bags. I gave Amos a goodnight hug, then walked out to the porch and down the stairs. My breath was a fog in the frosty air. Ooh, moaned the wind through the orchard trees. Rustle, rustle, went something in the garden hedge. Just a possum, Mike, Willie said to me, and he started to run. Yeah, I agreed. I hurried to catch up to him. We all slid to a stop at the big barn door where the shadows were deep and the wind was cold. Want to go back? Willie said. Not me, said Dan. Not me, said Julius. Ooh, moaned the wind. So you ready? Willie asked. I could feel him looking right at me. Sure, I said. The barn door creaked when Willie lifted the latch. It groaned when I pulled it back. It banged when the wind slammed it against the wall. If you want to know what the rest of the book's about, it's called A Night in the Barn by Faye Gibbons. Raising readers. As Brother Anthony has alluded, I'm passionate about that. Those years teaching first grade inspired me, and watching children walk into the classroom, a few of them knew how to read already, but most of them did not. And to watch them learn to read and the light come on in the eye, the honey for that child's heart that enlightened the eye, that did something for me as a teacher. In Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 8, it says, So they read in the book of the law of God distinctly, and they gave the sense, and they caused them to understand the reading. Have you ever sat in a Sunday school class and I don't know if it's typical in your community, but I've been in a lot of different communities, sat in a lot of adult Sunday school classes, and we read around the class. And they put periods where there's supposed to be question marks, or question marks where there's supposed to be periods. You know what I'm talking about. And you don't have the sense. The law of God is not read distinctly. And I'm not trying to point fingers at those brethren, but where was the education in the schools that they went to? Where did we lose out? The book I just read out of isn't the first time I've read that story. I'm impressed with it, though, because there's different voices there. There's feelings of fear, anxiety. All makes a good story, doesn't it? And if I read that in a monotone, no expression, what would that be like? So when I'm saying that we want to raise up readers in our schools, I'm talking about more than just knowing the mechanics and knowing how to pronounce words, how to spell them. And as we go into grammar and the language arts, and we're working with that, and we're trying to teach these children how to put these things together. Do they have expression? Can they read it distinctly, give the sense, and cause others to understand the reading? A story I started out with. We don't have time for that, but it'd be nice to say or have a discussion about what do you think happened next? I'd love to do that with some school children sometime, but I'm always so excited about reading the story that I forget to do it. Sometimes I don't remember. How can you, as administration, promote good reading in our schools? We need good teachers. Brother Anthony and I have this ongoing conversation about, we both are rep for Christian Light curriculum. But we've watched it over and over happen as we go from school to school, and they don't all use Christian Light. They may use some Christian Light, but not all. And we see good teachers teaching good material and getting good results. And we come to the conclusion that it is the teacher that makes the difference. And I know sometimes we're so strapped to find a teacher that we grasp at whatever we can get, right? I know what that's like. They ended up having to have me teach this year. And we're having a great time. And I'm just not saying that you need to find good teachers. You need to find good teachers that are able to teach outside the box. Now, I want to explain that a little bit. Not all children learn the same way. And I know that for every teacher, there is a first year. And sometimes it has to be at your school. That's okay. Walk alongside them. It's a rare community that has a school that does not have experienced teachers and the parents. It'd be a rare community. I'm sorry for you if that's the way it is. I talk sometimes to the school board, a group that, school board of a certain school, and none of them have taught before. That doesn't mean they can't do a good job, but it helps when one of those school board members has taught in the past. He knows what the teacher's talking about. He can relate it, and from his perspective, he can relate it much easier to the rest of the school board. When I say teach outside the box, they don't just teach according to the teacher's guide. Christian Light provides a lot of teacher's guides for our different subjects and different grade levels and that sort of thing. And one thing that I run into over and over is stressed out teachers who are trying to do everything that's in the teacher's guides. That's not the idea. It's to give you ideas that you use in your teaching. Don't let it be your master. Talking to teachers here again. But board, encourage these teachers that if you're struggling with something, We'll call somebody that will help you. Certainly, even if you're low on previous teachers in your community, other communities that have trusted longtime teachers. Call them. Get ideas and thoughts. If you're going to raise good readers, your first-time teachers, and maybe your second-year teachers or your struggling teachers, they're going to need somebody to walk along beside them. So it's not just a formula of, I'm going to go out and find a good teacher. This is for a school board here. That may not be the formula. The formula may be, I'm going to find somebody to walk alongside of them, or I'm going to walk alongside of them, whatever it's going to take. Number 2, this had to come, is you need good curriculum. You need good curriculum if you're going to raise good readers. And it doesn't have to be Christian-like. Make sure, though, that what you're using is producing the results that you want. And sometimes that's hard to know as you realize that you may not see the results of this for 10, 12, 15 years and really know how it's going to work out. So again, we need to, network out to other schools. We need to find out from other people, other teachers, what works for you. And remember that we're all kind of an opinionated lot, so try to find more opinions than just one. But a good curriculum provides a foundation for teachers. I applaud those teachers that can study for a while in the morning and stand before a class without any material and teach well and teach informatively in such a way that the students do well day after day. I'm not that person. I need some sort of guideline to help me get there. Number 3, we need good books. Now, I've got a stack of books up here. Here's the rag coat. I can stand here and look at this book. I can look at this computer, look at this book. Where's my priority going to be in my school? Is it going to be on this book? Is it going to be on this computer? Parents, community leaders. Is it going to be on technology, or is it going to be on the ability to read? Technology fascinates me. I get along okay with it. I'm a lot more comfortable with a book, but maybe a better question is, which do I want my child to learn first? How to read a book or how to navigate a computer? I don't know that we have a choice of that, because you see these 3, 4-year-olds already swiping on their parents' phone, hopefully not their own. And I'm afraid technology is the enemy of good reading. So, okay, what are we going to do? They've got a fair amount of the students in our schools have fairly easy access to technology. Can we give them access to good books? It takes money. Well, this does too. And maybe you have people in your community that would be willing to donate to the library, but they don't know how to get started. There's other people with other skills that know how to get a library started. Do you have a library in your school? What kind of a library do you have? Is it what I would call a collective library where all the books are in one place in that school? And the students have time, maybe not every day, but certain days of the week, to go there, and there's somebody there to help them and check them out. Other schools I visit, I see that they have appropriate age-level books on a shelf per classroom. That's okay. They have easy access to it. But what about the 4th grader that's reading on a 7th grade level? Doesn't have access to those books, or he has to ask special permission to go there. I still like the idea of having the books all at one place. It takes more work, takes more effort. It takes somebody maybe volunteering to be librarian for those days, coming in early for a couple hours to help children check out books. There's so many books, and we need to be careful what kind of content we are allowing in our communities. If you're fairly new to your community and if you've been put in charge of that, you better find out what the culture of the community is before you just buy any old book. In our area, we have some things that we call book fairs. They're just piles of books there, most of it trash. You can find some good jewels in amongst that. You know what you're looking for. Other people might not be okay with that. We have multiple publishers that we do trust, and there are reading books for reading class that many of them put out. And just because you're using Christian light reading doesn't mean you can't have some pathway books or rod and staff books available for them also. There's good literature in those things. If we're going to raise readers, we've got to have good books. CAM has those book packages. You buy so many books and it's a good deal. You pay a certain amount and you get a whole package of books. It's a great way to start a library. You can add to it every year. A library should be a growing thing. Let's get back to our subject about raising readers. Number 4, we need good judgment when it's time to repeat a grade. I've watched people, and I observed it as a teacher. We are so protective of our children that they not repeat a grade. And I have come to the conclusion that we would rather have our children go through school struggling, sweating, hurting, because school is so hard, rather than to let them repeat a grade. And the earlier the better. If they went through first grade and the first grade teacher said, I just don't think they're ready for second grade, school board, you need to take a serious look at that. You are deciding possibly, not 100%, but possibly that child, if you're going to say, let them go on, that child's going to struggle all the way through school. Repeating a grade is not an automatic cure that says, by this time next year, he will read well. It's not magic. But it gives them a better chance. And when we're unwilling to do that because we're afraid of how it will affect a child, it's not the children you have to worry about. It's the parents and grandparents. So, we need good judgment when it's time to repeat a grade. Number 5, we need adults who read and read well. I found that, and this I did as a school board person, that when I visited school, I offered to have a story time. That's not for everybody. I understand that. If you like to read, though, try it. You will not be disappointed. Children love adults who read, or love to have adults read to them. Maybe I should say it that way. And read with expression. Brethren, if the rest of the adult Sunday school class was there, you'd be embarrassed. That's the way I want you to read. The children will love that. Number 6 is kind of a repeat of number 3. We need good libraries. I touched on that a fair amount there in number 3. But we need good books in the home. We need good books in the school. Maybe some of you have church libraries as well. We need people that are willing, and in our community that seems to fall more to school board members' wives, that they're willing to proofread books and they're willing to look for new titles and find things to put in that library to bring. So as we are raising these children up to read, that they have access to excellent material, and it shouldn't all be one type. I love to read. I love to read. And I have 4 children. My oldest daughter entered school. I was actually her first grade teacher. I moved on to other grades by the time my boy was in first grade, and she loved to read. Reading was easy for her. She liked to read the same types of books that I like to read, and I thought that this parenting or being a parent of a school-aged child is simple. I don't know what they're talking about. I found out a little differently as my other children came along. For some of them, reading was more of a chore. They didn't enjoy it as much. And what really got me was the fact that my son didn't like to read the same things Dad liked to read. And I wanted to take him and say, listen, you need to like the things I like. We're a family. We read together. See, I would tend to go towards fiction types of stories, and he liked the nonfiction. And I had to get over that. I said, if I want him to read, if I want to encourage reading in this child of mine, I'm going to have to find material that excites him about reading. And I got over my prejudices in that area, and I found him material. He's a good reader now. I don't know where he come out in fiction, nonfiction now, but are we raising readers? Are we doing what we can? Just me knowing how to read is not good enough, not for me. I want the next generation to know how to read and read well. Story time. There is a certain millionaire who hath his office on the second floor of the First National Bank building. And when he goeth up to his offices, he rideth in the elevator, but when he goeth down, then he walketh. And he is an haughty man, who once was poor, and hath risen in the world. He is a self-made man who worshipeth his Maker. And he payeth his rent regularly on the first day of the month, and he considereth not that there are human beings who run the elevators and who clean the windows, hanging at a great height above the sidewalk, and who shovel coal into the furnaces under the boilers. Neither doth he at Christmas time remember any of them with a tip or a turkey. And there is in that building a poor woman who scrubbeth the stairs and the halls. And he hath walked past her often, but hath never seen her until recently. For his head was high in the air, and he was thinking of more millions. Now it came to pass on a day that he left his office and started to walk down the stairs. And the scrub lady was halfway down, for she had begun at the top and was giving the stairs their first once-over. And upon the topmost stair, in a wet and soapy spot, there was a large cake of soap. And the millionaire stepped on it. Now the foot which he set upon the soap flew eastward toward the sunrise, and the other foot started on an expedition of its own toward the going down of the sun. And the millionaire sat down on the topmost step, but he did not remain there. As it had been his intention to descend, so he descended, but not in the manner of his original design. And as he descended, he struck each step with a sound as if it had been a drum. And the scrub lady stood aside courteously and let him go. And at the bottom he arose and considered whether he should rush into the office of the building and demand that the scrub lady should be fired. But he considered that if he should tell the reason, there would be great mirth among the occupants of the building. And so he held his peace. But since that day he taketh notice of the scrub lady and passeth her with circumspection. For there is no one so high or mighty that he can afford to ignore any of his fellow human beings. For a very humble scrub lady and a very common bar of yellow soap can take the mind of a great businessman off his business troubles with surprising rapidity. Wherefore, consider these things, and count not thyself too high above even the humblest of the children of God, lest thou come down from thy place of pride and walk off with thy bruises aching a little more by reason of thy suspicion that the scrub lady is smiling in her suds and facing the day's work the more cheerfully by reason of the fun thou hast afforded her. For these are solemn days, and he that bringeth a smile to the face of a scrub lady hath not lived in vain. That's just a very short story out of a book full of short stories. It's one of the best in the book, I think. It's a man back in the 1800s, I think, that wrote for a magazine. His pen name was Safed the Sage. And every one of his little talks, he tries to bring out a Christian lesson there. Humility would be, obviously, be the one for this. But they're very interesting. That's a different kind of literature than we're used to, because he's using, I call it King James talk. Parables of Peru uses that somewhat as well, another book that introduces the children to something very different. If you would have a group, and I'm talking from experience here, not on this particular story, but I have been having a wonderful time with my 9th and 10th grade students this year. There's 4 of them. We are doing Literature 1 together, and we are reading as many of the stories as we can together as a class. And all it takes is for us to get into speech that is different than the way we say it in 2022. And they're stumbling badly. So just slow down. Your eyes should be ahead of where your voice is. Read carefully. Read it like it says, and if you don't get the sense of it, go back and read it again. Raising readers. Readers that will be able to take the Word of God and rightly divide it. I'm troubled. Back to our listening to other people read and hearing lots of mistakes. I'm troubled. It flips through my mind. I wonder what their personal devotions is like. Do they understand the Word of God? And there's nothing wrong with admitting that I don't understand this passage. But it shouldn't be because we struggle so hard to read. And I know that maybe some people here never had the opportunity to really learn well how to read. You may struggle with it all of your life. Practice, focus. You want to be an example to these children that we are trying to raise up. Raising readers. This year I've given some opportunity to the students in my classroom to read with me as we read out of their reading lessons and all. And I encourage good expression. School board, you can encourage that in your teachers. Try the reading at school. It may not be for you. I know that it's not for everybody. So may the Lord bless us as we seek to teach our children to read distinctly, to understand the sense, to understand the message, and that it may grip their hearts. As they read the Word of God, which is the most important, they need to understand that message and how it applies to them every day.